Okay, Tiffany, we are live.
Hey.
Hello, world. I am Dr. Tamia Austin, the Executive Director of the As One Foundation, where our mission is to empower families globally, delivering life-saving sickle cell education. Today is Warrior Talk Tuesday, and we are in the middle of a big giving season for us. Normally, our Darling Dash takes place as a one-day event on the last Sunday of February, but obviously coronavirus, COVID-19 had other plans for us this year. So the Darling Dash became the 2021 virtual Darling Dash Honey Run Edition. We are scheduled to have our race period throughout the month of February, and we recently extended through the month of March to be sensitive to our major support base in the Houston, Texas area, as well as increase our opportunity to reach our fans and supporters throughout the nation. So the Darling Dash is taking place through the end of March, but we're also showing you through our newsletter, through our social posts, and through our Warrior Talk Tuesday guests, what we do with proceeds raised from the Darling Dash. This month is, if you check out our newsletter, and we can post a link in the comments, you'll see that we are doing everything from educating, recruiting sickle cell allies, and today we are talking about the sickle cell education, sickle cell trait in particular, and we are so thrilled to have our guest with us today, who I will allow to introduce herself, tell you a little about her, and then we'll just dive in with questions. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to have you with us.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here with the As One Foundation.
So tell everyone your name and how you come to know the As One Foundation.
All right, so I'm Tiffany Riley. I'm a sickle cell trait warrior myself, and I have two sons, KJ, who's 15, and Caden, 12, and they both have a sickle cell trait as well. I honestly don't remember how I got to know at the As One Foundation. I think we lived here in Houston. There's a family connection between our family and yours, and it just came out like, oh yeah, well, I think my husband might have said, hey, my wife and my kids have sickle cell trait, they should be involved. And so that's how we found out about it. And really before that, I didn't know much about any organizations that were really focusing on sickle cell trait. I always heard about the sickle cell disease and the organizations that specifically focused for them, but not for us. So it's good to have that.
Well, you are not alone there, Tiffany. That is what we, the As One Foundation in particular, are here for. We realize there's a gap. And I mean, I could go on for hours talking about where the knowledge gaps are. It's not just amongst the patient population. It's not just amongst the community. Unfortunately, there's also knowledge gaps even in our clinical community. So that's what we're here, to do. But do you recall how you found out that you were trait positive, and then how you were notified about your sons?
Yeah, so I found out when my sons were notified. My oldest. So my oldest is 15. He was born in Orlando, and a few weeks after he was born, we get a letter from the health department, saying, hey, your child is sickle cell trait positive. And so, a first time mom, I freak out. Had no idea. I really didn't know the difference between sickle cell and sickle cell trait. And so when we spoke to our pediatrician, to your point about how, the clinical staff isn't as well versed in sickle cell trait, our pediatrician said, hey, it's nothing to worry about. Don't worry about it. As long as he doesn't have a child with another person that has sickle cell trait, then there should be no concerns. And so we went with that for years. And then we started to hear stories similar to Devon Darling's story, and my husband's athletic, my children started to become more active. And we realized, hey, this could be a little bit more impactful on our family than we thought all along.
Mhm. Unfortunately, there, although, I got to find another way to express that. That's common. That
Yes.
is common. That I hear that a lot. Certainly it predates me. As with the Devon and Devard Darling story, which I'll just digress a little bit because I usually let our followers and listeners know, just in case we have someone new that may not know our story. The As One Foundation is established by identical twin brother of Devon Darling by the name of Devard Darling. They were born in Nassau, Bahamas, um, and grew to love American football, American sports, and made such an impression upon them that they wanted to play American college football and even put it in their goals that they wanted to play in the National Football League. And fate, God's plan, however you choose to describe it, would have them move to Houston as young boys, where they played in Fort Bend Independent School District schools. And they were educated there, great students, but they were nationally recruited as football players and ultimately accepted a scholarship from Florida State, largely because Florida State would take them together. And if you see their faces and all that, they are identical. But they do go to Florida State, play as true freshmen, and fall one game short of winning every game that year. They lost in the Orange Bowl, but came back that following spring with that appetite. They were ready to go hard. They were ready to prove that they could be winners, especially playing as true freshmen. And February 26th, they were going through indoor mat drills at Florida State. And just as a result of some ignorant, ill-advised coaching, deprived of hydration, exhausted, passed out, Devon died. And his death certificate says exhaustion, exertion, rhabdomyolysis, complicated by sickle cell trait. And it is Devard's position, and we do follow at the foundation, that his death was preventable, as was many of the other collegiate deaths that have happened since Devon, and unfortunately even middle, high school, and other collegiate deaths. So that is our purpose. We are working to, number one, end those sudden deaths, those collapses. We believe they are preventable. And that brings us back to this sharing with you, Tiffany, because yes, we do have a personal relationship, but which afforded us the opportunity to exchange text messages. And once you were once again supporting us. We were doing another challenge last September for Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and you text saying, this is what I appreciate about the As One Foundation. Thanks for the reminders. Can you take us back to what we reminded you to do?
Oh, so it was so timely. And you know what? Today is timely too, because spring training is starting up soon. So, we were well into kind of football for Houston, right? It was early September. And I had started making it a habit. Every season, as soon as practice starts, my son goes out on the field, I'm going to be a little bit behind him, and I'm going to see the coaches and the trainers. And I'm saying, hi, I'm Tiffany. That one's my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sickle cell trait positive. And hey, do you know what to do? And do you have any training? And, and not to be arrogant about it, but just to bring awareness that, hey, I wanted them to be able to put a face with the name, because I put it on all the paperwork that we submitted. And every year I fill out the little section, I say sickle cell trait. And I even say, if he faints, please administer oxygen. And so that was just a reminder to me to have that conversation again, specifically for my younger son, because my older son's had that conversation so many times, the trainers already know me. But my younger son was just really starting to play football in 7th grade. And so I really needed to make sure that at that level, which has a little bit less availability to trainers, that each of the coaches recognized him. And they could know, as soon as something happened, they know that something would trigger their memory to say, hey, that's a kid we need to do something about. Not asking for any special treatment, because I think they should be able to participate as normal. Through the As One Foundation and everything we've researched on our own, we understand the importance of hydration. So that's, been drilled in them over and over again. But your message was just so timely, because I really needed to have that conversation. And what was really, really hurting was that my older son had just come home and said, Mom, I'm so dizzy. He had been in a practice from 8 to noon. It was Houston heat in September, which is really warm. And, he started to complain about, aches and pains and dizziness. And I didn't realize it. And I would consider myself, to be the parent that's well-versed in sickle cell trait. And so just to be able to say, I can't believe I missed that. So, in having a conversation with his trainer, one of the things that he mentioned, they asked, hey, has he ever had an episode before? And I said, no, he stays hydrated. We know what to do if something happens, but no, he hasn't had an episode. And so the trainer's feedback was, we have more problems out of kids who haven't had episodes because they don't know what to expect. They don't know when they're having an event. And so that's our new focus going forward. It's like, okay, what are you going to do when you go out there and you start to feel funny? And how do you know if it's an event, if it's sickle cell trait related? So it's a learning process for everybody. I will say, my boys are always in the Darling Dash with me. So we missed it this year. We'll be doing something virtually.
Yeah. Well, that's what we didn't have the physical event. We just, the city of Houston and many of the local municipalities were not issuing any permits as long as those COVID restraints were there. However, those have been lifted now or will be lifted really soon. But, as is the case with even our education, we really had to pivot. And where we would have normally September, we would have been in schools and on the campuses, community events, doing the in-services. Everybody is home. So we had to make a decision. So our decision was to make the Darling Dash virtual and let it run the entire month of February. And then coronavirus hit us. And then then that storm hit. So we just recently announced that we are extending the Darling Dash through March. So there's still time.
Thank you.
I wish I didn't bring my medal in, but this year, because it marks the 20th anniversary of Devon's passing, February 26, 2021, 20 years. Devon passed away on 2011, February 26. So and I'll post a link in the comments. We put together a video about Devon because he passed away pre-social media. So it's not a whole lot out there about him, except for that, his high school games, a lot of video from his high school games at Stephen F. Austin. But every day in school, speaking of Texas heat, they had started having football practice before. Is it the same with your sons? They have practice before
after
school.
They have it after.
Okay, well, at this time, practice was before school. So first period was reserved for them to shower and get ready for school. And second period was their first class. And Miss McGee was their teacher, and she was teaching them art at the time. And Devon would come into class every single day eating a honey bun. And he's like, Miss McGee, I just got out of football practice. I'm hungry. And he's like, you know the rules. And he'd say, Miss McGee, it's only a honey bun. But she wrote us this letter letting us know that she shares this story with her current students today. She said this is one of her most requested stories because she talks about the fact that every day he would do it, but every day he would discard it with no resistance, very nice young man, and the fact that he would pass away, but his brother would find a way to establish a foundation in his memory, give back to Fort Bend Independent School District through scholarships. And now we have this fundraiser in their name So we put together a video, and we also made the medal this year a honey
I saw
bun.
that.
And it really looks real. And I say it's the safest, low, no calorie, guilt-free metal. And I Googled, and there was no other, I didn't find any other honey bun. So we can also, boast that it's the only honey bun metal you can get. So, and there are 530 available, which is symbolic of the 53. That was his football number. And pretty much everything we do at the As One Foundation does in some way commemorate Devon's memory, but it also gives us the assurance that Devon's death was not in vain, by educating and supporting parents such as yourself and so many more young men and women, because unfortunately this has taken young female athletes, namely basketball athletes that we're aware of, female basketball athletes that we're aware of. So it's not just football. And when we did our research to find out whether young athletes would want to know if their teammates had sickle cell trait, or would want their teammates to know that they had sickle cell trait, and they all said to us, yes, we want to know. I would want my teammates to know. It doesn't mean that they can't play. What if my teammate has asthma? He can still play. And they, young people tend to do that. They tend to give us a refreshing point of view. So this is what Darling Dash Funds supports. We have to get these stories out there. We have to make sure parents who didn't know, who had no idea, because it is true. If one parent has sickle cell trait and the other parent has sickle cell trait, there is a 25% chance that you birth a child with sickle cell. And there are parents that have said, I didn't know. And if I had known, maybe I would have done something different. And so my position is, I just want everybody to know. I want everybody to understand, and have the opportunity to intervene for their son or daughter the way that you do and you guys are learning together, which is what I want to get back to your experience with your sons. You said, okay, so we're focusing on that now. Can you just bring us into the Riley household and share with me how you have these conversations with your sons?
So whenever Darling Dash registration opens, even though I'm probably the last person to ever register, I'm still saying, hey, we're going to do that race. It's coming up. And do you know why? Do you remember? Yes, Mom, we know we have sickle cell trait, but, it's important for them to know and to be there. When we're getting ready to head out of the house to practice, do you have your water jug? And we don't do water bottles. We have the gallon jug or more.
Good.
And so, if you plan to be there for an extended amount of time, especially in summer, I've seen KJ, my older one, take another water bottle along with his jug just to refill. Now, COVID's made it a lot difficult now. The school doesn't allow students to use the water facilities there. So like they used to bring out a, water cooler thing with water hoses and stuff. So now kids are responsible for bringing their own water. At least before he bring his jug, he could refill it. Now there's no refill at school. So wow. We just have the conversation about, hey, is your jug full? Do you have plenty of water? Okay, do you have enough? That's always a part of the conversation. And so we also talk about, is it okay for you to tell your coach that you're not feeling well? Because that's been a topic that I've heard you guys talk about it as one, and especially in Devon's story, right? Where coaches just are misinformed. Mm-hmm. And so this is not a sign of weakness or inability. This is a medical condition that is serious. So you have to be willing. And my younger son he's a main one. He's run on a broken leg and he's always limping, but he just, keeps pushing. So we have to really focus with him that, this is important. I will tell you that in all of this, last night was one of the best moments. So my older son is registered for a football camp. I see him online, completing all the information. I just kind of peek over his shoulder and there's a box that says medical conditions, and he typed sickle cell trait. And so I was really proud of that because we have worked really hard to make sure that they're aware. And I think now, he has the ability to be an advocate for himself. I don't have to be the parent that's going to talk to the trainer because my son can do that for himself. And so I was really proud of that. And I was like, oh, this is once again right on time for As One being there, because you guys played a very major part in that.
Oh,
It's been
Tiffany, that
helpful.
just that warms my heart in so many ways. I feel like every time I talk to you on and off camera, you give me something that I want to make a program, because if you remember the last conversation, it was that mom, and
Yeah.
I just feel like there are moms everywhere that can relate. Oh, I'm that mom that's going to
Mhm.
be here. And I just feel like if that coach knows, oh no, no, then that, because you don't get second chances. They get one life.
Right.
This is not a car you can replace. This is your son. And my heart, I think about Miss Wendy, who is Devard and now their late mother, because
Mhm.
she passed away last year, the same day as Kobe Bryant. And the way that she would talk about Devon, she called him Vonnie. And she has an identical twin, Devard. They look just alike, but I'm amazed at how her love, when she saw Devard, she embraced him as if he was the only thing in the world. But when she talked about Devon, it was like he was the only one. And that to me is what a parent is, especially that mom. So to be and you being that mom brings you to that moment last night, where now you've laid the foundation,
Mhm.
and now he can advocate for himself. That's success. That is success 100%. So my hat's off to you, and I absolutely receive the affirmation, because we need it. This especially the sickle cell trait side of the house, as I like to call it, is so common. That I think the commonality of it breeds the ignorance, or the knowledge gaps. People think they know, and then you have the clinicians that say nothing to worry about. And I think we can say it differently. I think we can add some information to it, so
Mhm.
people understand what it is, and and so our risk factors, we share elevation, dehydration, exertion. And we also share protective factors, which is, warm up, drink up, rest up. They cannot go from 0 to 100 like that. They got to warm up. They need to hydrate before, during, and after. And then they have to rest up, which is also known as recovery. And Devon, he was deprived of all three. And that was the combination
Mhm.
that, is the difference between him being here with us or not. So kudos to you for being that mom.
Thank
and
you.
and we are motivated to continue, because if it's just one life, but we want to save all of them. We just don't feel that sickle cell trait should be what takes these young men and women out. And and we focus on these young athletes, we focus on football players, because that is some intense exertion. But the fact of the matter is, Devard went on after that and played 2 more years in college. Then he went on and, was drafted to the NFL and played 8 years. And now I believe he's retired, more than 5 years, and he's still very physically active. So sickle cell trait is not a death sentence. It is not, grounds to sit down and your family is active, but there's some responsible practices that, you guys are doing, and we definitely appreciate the feedback, because it's motivation. It is absolute motivation. So
Well, the As One Foundation is definitely motivation for us. I mean, every time I join a call or I'm just, halfway listening, I pick up just one little additional nugget. So, we talked about earlier how we have to learn how to recognize when they're having an event. We've always focused on hydration, right? Because that's one of the first things I learned. But now your mantra, warm up, drink up, rest up. the warm-up piece is something that I really didn't focus on with the boys. So for 2021, that'll be, our new thing is just focusing on the warm-up and making sure that they understand the importance of it.
I'll tell you, Devard, this hasn't even been, I don't think this has been 2 years ago. He went to the gym and he always says, I got to get this workout in real quick. And, works out every single day. And he said he was in the gym and he just got on the treadmill and just went for it. And he had an episode. He ended up dizzy. He ended up vomiting. He had the pain in his side. And this is not a scare tactic at all, but there is new research about exertion and kidneys. Just that's why the hydration is so important. That's why the warming up is so important, because there's still so much that's not known. But he had dizziness, he vomited, and he had pain in his side and had to go somewhere and sit down. And this is a retired professional athlete, physically fit, but he has sickle cell trait. So that was a reminder to him, hey man, I can't do this. I gotta warm up. I gotta take my time and increase from sedentary to exertion gradually, or intensity, increase to intensity gradually. And the what he always says when he talks to the young guys in the locker room and they're asking him about his football career, he's telling them, you have to know your body. Yeah. You have to pay attention to your body. And he has 3 sons, 3 very active sons. And I believe we got all 3 of them as positive for sickle cell trait. So he's that dad at those sporting events, soccer, track. What's the one with the big football? I believe they're rugby. I think they're playing rugby, and not quite tackle at the moment, but just skills. They're developing skills, and he's always telling the young athletes, you got to know your body. And he was caught slipping that day because he knows his body, but he's like, I'm just going to get this in real quick. You still got to warm up, still got to hydrate, and you still got to recover. And I remember him saying he couldn't recover. He couldn't get his breath. He couldn't recover. It was just really, really slow coming. And I'm also reminded, Ty Montgomery, I believe he's a running back with the New Orleans Saints. He speaks openly about his sickle cell trait. And he talks about having episodes and trying to figure out how he'd be in the locker room and his teammates would be, well on their way going or whatever. He was still, trying to, and he's a current NFL player. Mm-hmm. So that recovery is important. And for Devon, it was the difference between life and death. So yes, Tiffany, I wish I could just have you and gather you and just, transcribe everything you said, because that mom is a program. That's something. And, and now getting your sons to this, I just hear education. I just hear opportunities to, because that you're obviously a parent. You're who we're targeting. You're a parent. You have young sons, active sons. So you're who we're trying to reach. So if we reached you, then we can use that. That's a test case or, a case study. So I mean this in all sincerity. Thank you. Thank you for this reinforcement, this affirmation. And everyone, you can see, if we don't have Darling Dash proceeds, then our response is limited, and it's limited still, but at least we can start the year with something to, get the message out. And this is a part of it. Trait Warrior Tuesday. We're coming up on our second sickle cell trait education symposium in the latter part of April. And then we're planning a children's science. We're calling it Genotype Kids Camp, where we're actually going to have about 10 sickle cell kids, but it's open to anyone. And it will be, we're hoping to have the funding so that it'll be free of charge, because we got to hit them all. We got to hit every age. We're just trying to let everyone meet them where they are. So this will be a virtual education camp, but we'll send a box of supplies and activities that can be done with other siblings, with parents. And all of this is what Darling Dash proceeds helps us afford to do. So please check the comments, visit the As One Foundation. As1foundation.org is the website. Before I conclude, I'd like to, give you the floor if you have any other closing words.
I think the most I can say is just participate in as many activities as you can, especially all the ones that the As One Foundation offers, because it's focused, a lot on sickle cell trait, which gets very little visibility in our community. And so we need that so much. As a parent, I would say, be active, learn as much as you can, and then, do everything you can to partner with your child's coaches and their trainers to understand what they have available. I didn't even know that the school had oxygen available. So during episodes, that was the first thing I learned was always administer oxygen. And so I learned a lot just by asking the question, hey, do you know that my kid has sickle cell trait?
I really appreciate you sharing that because that's one thing that we would jump at, is to be able to provide water because they're not able to refill. So I'm going to get on that like immediately to see how we can assist. And I'm imagining there's probably lower tiered schools that probably need way more, than that. So that's
just a
important.
new one with COVID, just the school's guidelines with COVID to keep the kids safe. And so we just have to pivot.
Yep, that's it. I mean, we're adapting and adjusting on the fly, but we got to have to save lives. And water, that's nothing. We can get water. We can get them water and unlimited water. So we're gonna get that. So listen, we've come to the end of our talk, but we will be sharing this on our social media. Hopefully we'll be able to see each other in person soon. Texas is going for it. So, but, we'll still maintain, practice until we, really experience some relief in our nation. But I cannot thank you enough, Mrs. Riley, for sharing this perspective, for being such a trait warrior mom and helping us save lives by sharing this information and just taking care of your precious warrior sons, trait warrior sons as well. So with that, I will just say to our visitors, our listeners, our followers, thank you. Join us every Tuesday. This month, we are showing you how Darling Dash funds are spent, what we do with the money. I'll show you the money, and we are showing you the money. So join us next week, every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Trait Warrior Tuesday. See you next week.